Hello. We're going to begin looking at chapter 9 of the Tao Te Ching now. And chapter 9 is a rather simple chapter. It's about humility, which means it's also about not trying to overdo yourself. Not trying to do too much in order to feel good about yourself. Not trying to gain too much in order to feel good about yourself, not trying to be seen too much in order to feel good about yourself. It's really about doing what comes to you to be done, doing what's just right, doing the job well, but then letting go. In other words, this isn't about your work, isn't about your reputation or how others see you or being better than others. It's just about service, the service of the Tao. I started to say service to the Tao, but it's really not service to the Tao. It's the service of the Tao coming through you. What you are to do comes to you, you do it, and then the job is done and you let it go. You don't hold on to it pridefully. You don't wave the flags in front of everybody and say, look what I've done. You don't pose with your book, right? You just move on to whatever comes next. So why don't we look at chapter 9 in the Regina Akers translation? It says, it cannot be good to be full of yourself. You can't always be the smartest one around. If you amass a fortune, you could lose it. Riches, high standing, and arrogance eventually lead to your downfall, with no one to blame but yourself. When you have accomplished something successfully, self-satisfaction could set in. Instead, humbly step back. This is the way of heaven. Or some people have ended this as, this is the way of nature. So if we look at this first line, it cannot be good to be full of yourself. Many people translated this something about it cannot be good to fill a bowl to the brim. But let me show you what the characters look like when I look them up in the dictionaries. Notice the first set of characters translated literally says hold and full of. So whatever you're holding is full. That's what this of does. Remember, the of always points back. So whatever you're holding is full, right? Just imagine that. You're holding something that's very, very full. And then not equal to, or that could have said not as, his, her, oneself. I translated that to, it cannot be good to be full of yourself. It cannot be good to be full of yourself. I'm going to put these characters in a dictionary. To hold and full or filled or a surplus of, and then of, which is the possessive particle. So it's again, it's pointing back saying whatever you're holding is full. And then we come to these characters. It could be not equal to. It could also be not as good as. It could be inferior to. It could be, it would be better to, and then his, her, self. The sense that I got out of that was, instead of being full of yourself, it's better to be true to yourself. What's the difference between being full of yourself and being true to yourself? When I think of being true to myself, I think of being honest, clear, and humble. So, for example, I was being true to myself when I translated the Tao Te Ching. This energy came to me, this motivation came to me that filled me up with this calling to sit down and translate the Tao. And as I mentioned before, I believe, it took a hold of me, and like all I wanted to do, I think it was a total of about 8 weeks, all I wanted to do for 8 weeks was translate the Tao. It's all I wanted to do. So I was being true to myself by taking on that job. But if we look at the very next line, to estimate and sharp of cannot long protect. Lots of people translated this about if you sharpen a blade too much, you're going to go too far and it's going to blunt the blade. Notice I translated it as you can't always be the smartest one around. Either way, what this line is really saying is, if you try to go too far, if you try to make it the best, whether you're sharpening a sword, make it the sharpest, or whether you're trying to be the smartest one in the room, if I'm trying to do I want my translation of the Tao to be the best, I want everyone in the world to say it's the best. I want it to be the best. What this is really saying is, you can't protect, you can't defend that stance, or you can't keep that stance of always being the sharpest, of always being the best. There's just no way. I remember once I talked to a spiritual teacher, and he was feeling bad because we were at a conference where there were a lot of spiritual teachers. Sometimes there were like 8 teachings going on at a time, and you had to pick which one you were going to go to. And he was feeling bad because somehow he got wind of someone preferring another teacher to him. But then he, in true spiritual discipline, he started looking at himself. He knew that if he felt bad, there must be something in him that needed to be seen. And what he found that was the error or the mistake in his own mind that needed to be seen and let go was that he wanted to be the best. You see, you can't always be the best. So when you try to always be the best, always be the smartest, right? You're setting yourself up for a fall. In fact, if we continue, gold and jade, full large room, there is no one who of can defend. Or I translated it, if you amass a fortune, you could lose it, right? This is just another way of saying, the more you try to be the best, to outdo everyone else, if that is your motive, to outdo everyone else, at some point, you're going to fail. Riches and honor and arrogant oneself lose his, her fault. Or as I translated it, riches, high standing, and arrogance eventually lead to your downfall with no one to blame but yourself. Again, this entire chapter is warning us about wanting to be seen as the best, wanting to be seen as the smartest, wanting to be seen as the most artistic, the most wise, the most enlightened, you pick it, the most beautiful, right? Wanting to be better than others in some way, the richest, sets you up for a fall. So for example, when I translated the Tao, my goal was to do it with sincerity. My goal was to look at the Chinese characters, to see what I saw in them, and to translate it as accurately as possible while communicating the gist of that to the reader. That was the goal, not to be the best, not to appear the smartest, not to be held up as, whoa, somebody finally got the Tao right. Right? But if we, I laugh at that, and maybe you're laughing with me. But if we pay attention, there are times when the ego tendency in our mind is to appear that way. Maybe we're in a meeting and maybe we throw out an idea and we want everybody to hear what a great idea that is. And maybe they don't. But then maybe 20 minutes later in the meeting, someone else throws out the same idea and somebody says, that's a great idea, Rich. Don't we want to say that? I said that, right? Don't we want that recognition? I said that first, right? This chapter is about humility. Maybe our job was to say the idea just so Rich could hear it and express it again, thinking that it was his own idea, right? I mean, we did our job by saying it when it was our turn to say it. Whether anybody heard it or not is none of our business. In fact, if we go back, achievement, accomplishment, succeed, satisfy, oneself, move back. Here's how I translated that. When you have accomplished something successfully, self-satisfaction could set in. Instead, humbly step back. This is the way of heaven. Again, there are things that are going to come to us to do, whether it's translating the Tao Te Ching, throwing out an idea in a meeting, leading a project, or following someone else's lead of a project. Doesn't really matter. Whatever we do in a way that we are true to ourselves. And when we're true to ourselves, we do the best that we can. We trust everything that's happening around us. And we're not doing it for recognition. We're doing it because it's ours to be done. Let's go ahead and just read that entire chapter again. I called it humility. It cannot be good to be full of yourself. You can't always be the smartest one around. If you amass a fortune, you could lose it. Riches, high standing, and arrogance eventually lead to your downfall, with no one to blame but yourself. When you have accomplished something successfully, self-satisfaction could set in. Instead, humbly step back. This is the way of heaven. I was reading something the other day that referenced a Bible verse in Ecclesiastes. I didn't look the Bible verse up, but it stuck in my mind. And the gist of the Bible verse was something like, whatever it comes to your hands to do, do well. That's really what this is saying. Whatever comes to you to do well. But then let it go. When it's done, let it go. And wait to see what comes to your hands to do next. This is allowing the Tao to move through you without, bolstering your ego, without bolstering your me. Why don't we look at how someone else has translated this? This is man. Well, let me open this up and we'll look at who translated this. Man Ho Kwok, Martin Palmer, and Jay Ramsey together in 1993. Hold yourself back from filling yourself up, or you'll tip off your stand. You can hammer a blade until it's razor sharp, and in seconds it can blunt. You may amass gold and jade in plenty, but then the more you have, the less safety. Are you strutting your wealth like a peacock? Then you've set yourself up to be shot. You bring about your own disaster, because you've got too much. Let go when your work is done. That is the way of heaven. I thought that one was a little bit funny, but yet to the point. So I wanted to share it. So what is an assignment that we can look at? Just watch for when you want recognition. Watch for when you want to be the best, when you want others to notice you, when you want others to praise you. Just watch for that. And then remember that what's really best, what's really aligned with the highest good, which was the last chapter that we looked at, chapter 8, is just to surrender our self-will, which is wanting to be recognized, wanting to be the best, right? That's all self-will, surrendering our self-will, noticing what's coming to our hands or our minds to do, then just doing it well and let it go. So step back from that desire to be prideful into true humility, right? Just be true to yourself. Just do your best job and then let it go and see what comes next. So pay attention. Look, when do you want to be seen? When do you want to be the best? When do you want to be noticed? Can you recognize that's just my self-will? Self-will. I surrender that. I don't need the recognition. I don't need to be seen. I don't need to be the best. Heck, I can't even be the best all the time. So if I, try to be the best at some point, that's just going to hurt me because I'm going to see that I'm not, like that spiritual teacher I told you about, right? So just let that go. What is coming to me to do? And I'm just going to do it my best and let it go. All right, that's it for now. And I'll see you again sometime and we'll look at chapter 10. All right. Bye.